Well, so I'm going to talk about two things today. I'm going to talk about responsive web design and mobile first. But first, the obligatory slide about King Arthur Flour for those who aren't familiar with our company. We're America's oldest flour company. We're founded in 1790. We are 100% employee owned. I'm an owner of the company. We're the #1 whole wheat flour in the US, the #2 all-purpose flour. We just beat out the Doughboy. We sell over 1,200 specialty baking products, ingredients. We manufacture and sell about 140 different mixes. They're fabulous. We have a retail store, a bakery and cafe, and a baking school at our headquarters in Vermont that just completed a fabulous renovation. It's gorgeous. You should come visit if you're in Vermont. And our website has between 1.2 million and 2 million visitors a month. We sell about 1,200 products, over 2,000 recipes. We have a very active, engaged audience on our site and out on the social web. Over 50,000 reviews have been posted on our site. We have 750 blogs with over 24,000 comments and over 6,000 posts in our community. Let's go back one. Sorry about that. So how many of you have heard about responsive web design? Great. And how many of you have heard about mobile first? All right. So there's going to be a little bit of something here for everyone. I'm going to start in February of 2011, about a year and a half ago, and we were about to begin the mobile project. And our designer came across this amazing site. It's a site from Hicks Design, a design firm in the UK, and you can see as you resize your browser, the site transforms. It goes from desktop to tablet to mobile, as you see here, and now tablet again, and then desktop. We're like, wow, this is incredible. This is an amazing site, and we start to see a lot of sites like this out on the internet, and we think we might have a new direction. And so our designer forwards an article from Smashing Magazine to our team. He says there's a name for it. It's called responsive web design. So now we had a name for what we wanted to build. And there's a great book on the topic written by Ethan Marcotte. It's available on a book apart. It's only $7.99. It's about a 2-hour read. It's a great book. And we think about it. We can build a device-agnostic site. We don't have to worry about a separate mobile and maybe even a tablet site for our commerce site, our blog, our recipe site, our corporate site. That would quickly become very unmanageable and very expensive. We can continue to build one version of each site, but a responsive version. So, okay, we're on board. We like this idea. We're going to try it. Now, how the heck are we going to do it? So we're going to start with our recipe site. Now, about at the same time where we're trying to figure out how to do it, I visited a blog of a local web development firm in Vermont, and I saw an interesting post with an embedded video of a presentation that the author of the blog said was required material for everyone in his company. So I sat down, I started to watch it. It happened to be Luke Wroblewski's, or Luke W.'s, mobile first presentation. I spent the next hour watching it. In his presentation, he argues that we should reverse our approach and design for the mobile screen first and then the desktop. Not because mobile users are more important or because we have more mobile users, but because of the reasons he lists here. 1, mobile is exploding. 2, mobile forces you to focus. And 3, mobile extends your capabilities. And for me, the second reason really stood out, focus. As I was struggling with the how to lead this project, how to design one site for 3 devices, I suddenly had a clear way to approach it. So as an aside, if any of you haven't already seen this, go ahead and take an hour and watch this presentation. It's fabulous. In his presentation, one of the examples he gives is the Southwest, or one of the illustrations he gives is the Southwest Airlines website. He shows in the presentation how really the mobile site is everything the user wants, but the desktop site is just filling the screen with all this other stuff. Now, I had an experience like this on the JetBlue website. Now, I saw the JetBlue mobile guy is presenting tomorrow, and I hope he's not in this room, but I think they've redesigned their site in the past few months. In any case, I've long been a fan of their site. It's clear, it's usable, it's friendly, it's all happy jetting, right? They have an even better mobile site, but I tried to look up flights on my tablet, and it was a complete disaster. The most important task on the page, searching for flights, is impossible. You can't click on a date. You can barely select the autofills. I'm fat fingering all over the screen, as you can see there. I actually crashed the browser on my iPad. I didn't even think that was possible. So I eventually just gave up. Not good. Now, I believe that if they had taken some of the lessons from their mobile site, their tablet experience would be far better. Now, we sell flour, and we publish recipes. And it's essential that our site is usable in a supermarket because people are looking up recipes, make sure they have all the ingredients when they're out shopping. And it has to be usable when your tablet's in the kitchen, right? Because the tablet is the ultimate cookbook, and on a desktop computer. So our whole team watches this, and we're on board. We're going to give this a try. We're going to try a mobile-first approach to redesigning our recipe site. So this is where we started. And we decided to start with a recipe page because that's the most complex page. So we'll tackle that one first. Now here's what we had, and it doesn't look so bad. It actually looks like maybe we had designed it for a tablet. But when you try to use it, you can barely click on the links, not to mention the search box. The type is too small to read. You have to do a lot of scrolling. There's a lot of improvements we can make here. So we take the mobile-first approach, and the first step that we take is to sketch out the mobile experience. The title, the photo, the ingredients, the instructions, these are essential pieces, and we want them to be right up towards the top. Everything else, like maybe the global navigation, some of our step photos, maybe those aren't quite as essential. We'd like a persistent navigation bar across the top and the bottom so you don't have to scroll between ingredients and instructions. We enlarge our buttons, our search box, so everything's touchable. Instead of live chat with a baker, we actually have a live baking hotline where you can call if you're having baking troubles. We add a click to call, obviously, since it's on a phone. And then at the bottom of the page, we actually put the obligatory view full site link. So we were even confusing ourselves. This is the full site. It isn't any different. So we ended up taking that out. But we come across that again and again nowadays. Second step was the tablet experience. So we know people prop recipes up on their iPads in the kitchen, and we don't want to have to scroll back and forth between ingredients and instructions with their flour-covered hands. So we'd like to have the ingredients and the instructions side by side. Now ideally you could scroll through instructions and have the ingredients sticky. We're not quite sure if that's possible. But since we have the screen real estate, we're going to add in step photos and the instructions. We're going to add back in the ratings and reviews, add in our baker's tips. We enlarge all of our buttons and our search box so that they're touchable. We add in a full header and footer and left-hand navigation. And then we go to the tablet portrait experience. And we don't have as much page width, so we go back and forth on whether to put in the left-hand navigation. We end up keeping it, but just making the page grid's columns a bit tighter. We think it's okay. We think it works. And last but not least, we get to desktop. And you're probably thinking, well, wait, that's a tablet, not a computer. Well, we find that we really don't have anything worth adding or changing. We also realize that many of the improvements made for the touch interface, the larger search box, the more space, the larger touch targets, there are improvements on the desktop interface as well. So our desktop sketch ends up being the same as our tablet sketch, which makes it so much easier. Great. So then the coding begins. Now, I have to tell you, this took a really long time. There are 3 core ingredients to a responsive website: flexible layout, flexible images and media, and CSS3 media queries. But we got some help from a few places. We used a template that our developer found called 320 and Up. That is an extension of what's called the HTML5 boilerplate. Now, without getting into too many of the technical details, these gave us the skeleton we needed, the HTML, the CSS, and the JavaScript to build our mobile-first responsive site. We ended up having to give up on a few of the features, like the sticky navigation bar on the mobile site. We couldn't get that working. And the scrolling directions with sticky ingredients on the left for tablet. But we just kind of put them on the back burner for phase 2. A little bit more about 320 and Up. What we like about this is that it prevents mobile devices from downloading the tablet and the desktop CSS and assets by using the 320, the smallest style sheet as its starting point. So it's essentially a mobile-first CSS to start with. And last but not least, we came to testing. And so there's a picture of our crazy web team. And we all went off site. We turned off Wi-Fi. We sat in a coffee shop like real people, and we used our site. Now, if there's one piece of advice I would give, don't use emulators. It's a completely different experience. It's fine for debugging, but if you want to experience your site, go out and experience it and test it like a real person. So we searched, we browsed, we submitted reviews, we drank a lot of coffee, and we found a lot of bugs, but we had a great time. We all ended up enjoying searching our mobile and our tablet site more than our desktop site. So here is where we started. This is one of our most popular recipes on our website. And here is where we ended up. So a little bit different than our wireframes, but largely the site we intended to build. Everything has more space to touch. We've increased the font size, the leading, the size of the search box, the share buttons. The pages feel brighter and airier. The usability changes that we tested out to be huge improvements across all 3 devices. And here it is in action. You can actually watch it transform. And there we have it, our first responsive site. So what lessons did we learn? The first and one of the most important lessons that we will learn, and one that we constantly come up against, is that order matters when you're building a responsive site. For mobile, what we found in our new site was that our HTML was actually a little bit heavier than the HTML for our old site, and that's not ideal. For mobile, you want a nice, lean, slim site. And one of the reasons was that we didn't design it for source order in mind. So you see here on mobile, we have the, I don't know if you can see this, but we first had the title, and then we had the star rating, and then we had the image, and then we had recipe quick facts. But on tablet and desktop, we have the image, and then a description, and then the title, and then the ratings, and then the recipe quick facts. So they're not quite in the same order. So how did we do this? Well, we actually had to come up with a system of hiding and showing elements depending on the screen size. So you'll see there's a little pseudocode up here, and first we're showing in mobile and hiding in tablet the title and the star rating. Then we show in mobile and show in tablet the image. Then we go back to the title and star rating, but we hide it in mobile and we show it in tablet. So we've got redundant code in there. It's not ideal. And we came across this again and again when we were coding. You know, we want it to be efficient. We want it to be efficient. We want it to be lean. We don't want to have that redundant code. So the second lesson we learned was that for mobile, you're actually making things larger. So I was working out with a friend a few months ago, and she asked me what my talk was about. And I was explaining it. I asked if she had ever surfed the web on her phone. And she said, well, no, because it's too small. I said, well, precisely, right? It's too small. So it seems counterintuitive, but you need to make things bigger for mobile and touch. So on the top, you'll see the size of our search box. I don't know if you can all see that. The size of the search box that we started with, and at the bottom you can see the size search box that we end up with, and that is to scale. Now I have to tell you, this was one of the most controversial changes that we made when we redesigned our site. Some of our more marketing-minded executives were like, oh, the search box is bigger than the logo. And my answer was, well, good. We want it to be big. The third lesson, you want to worry more about touch and less about Internet Explorer. So when we started our mobile-friendly redesign, this was back in February of 2011, we had 6% of our traffic coming from mobile, about 2% from tablet, and 4% phone. When we started our redesign in when we started our redesign in August of 2000, ended our redesign in August of 2011, we had about 7% from phones and 5% from tablets. That's about 12% touch. And now, when I first gave this presentation, back in February of this year, we were at 22% of our traffic coming from mobile. It was 13% phone and 9% tablet. That's 6% to 22% in a year. Now, our engineers still spent more time testing and debugging for IE compatibility. Now, I used to joke, you want to skate to where the puck's going, right? Well, he was spending more time paying attention to IE than to tablet and to touch. And guess what? I just updated this last week, right before this presentation, and the puck's there. We're at 28% mobile, tablet and touch, tablet and phone, and 28% IE. Now, luckily, we have a new template and system for design that can accommodate this shift, and we have actually stopped trying to support responsive behavior in Internet Explorer. It's too buggy. Now, the fourth lesson, and obviously, there are a lot of trade-offs with responsive design. The size and performance of mobile sites is not as lean as if you had a dedicated mobile site. You're simply serving more HTML and assets to that small screen. And second, it takes a lot longer to develop than a desktop-only or a mobile-only site. But I believe that ultimately you're gaining a lot of efficiency and a lot of flexibility. And so we're sticking with responsive as our standard for design. And the fifth lesson, a responsive site does not hurt your mobile SEO. How many times have you heard this? If we build a dedicated mobile site, it will help our mobile SEO. Well, you're going to hear this from stakeholders, marketers, executives, and you're going to hear this as an argument against responsive design. But it's simply not true. So if you look at the numbers, since launching our responsive recipe site, organic search traffic for recipe searches has quintupled versus doubled for overall organic search traffic. I'd say that exactly the opposite is true, that the responsive site has helped our mobile SEO. I have another story about this. I was at a supermarket, and I had to look up a recipe to make sure I was buying all the right ingredients, and so I went to this very well-known recipe site, and they had a mobile version. Great. So I searched on their mobile site, but because they had stripped down the refinements, I couldn't find the recipe I was looking for. So I went back to Google, and I did a Google mobile search. And the top result was the recipe I was looking for, but they had indexed in Google mobile search the full version of this recipe. So I'm like, okay, great. So I click on the link, it takes me to the full version of the recipe, and then that bounces me back to the mobile homepage of this recipe site. So there I was, back to square one. So what did I do? I went back to Google, I found the recipe posted on another website. So here this site is, and they have built a dedicated mobile site, and they've just lost their mobile search traffic. And lesson number 6, and probably the important lesson we learned through all of this, is that a mobile-first approach improves your designs, whether they're mobile or tablet or desktop. So the next project that our team tackled was a redesign of our press section. We met with 2 of our PR coordinators, and they had a long list of wishes. They wanted more excitement on the page, more graphics, links to Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, a list of awards. They wanted everything. So our designer came back a few weeks later with some sketches, all full desktop sketches, and I swear it looked like he had barfed on the page. It was a complete mess. We went round and round discussing what we liked and didn't like, ideas for how to rework things, and we had a terrible, terrible creative review. So after the meeting, the designer came into my office like, oh my God, what a disaster. And I looked and I said, why don't you try mobile first? Let's try it again. So we went back to the drawing board. He sketched out some mobile designs. We met with them again, and they loved it. There was a clear focus on the important elements of the page, and the rest of the design process went beautifully. And so here we applied our learnings to our press section. You'll see it's a clear, consistent experience. Works across all devices. The next project we did were some holiday galleries. You'll see a nice Valentine's Day gallery that we did, some cute heart cupcakes. And then last summer, we tackled our homepage. Here's what we started with, pretty busy, not that clear of a page. And here's our homepage, a screenshot I took last week. You'll see we're now starting to roll out a new responsive header that we've updated. And then 2 weeks ago, we launched our new responsive e-commerce site. It's got full features, complete with image zoom, photo galleries, reviews, related recipes and products, and it's fully featured and consistent across all 3 devices. I wish I had some results and stats to tell you, but it's very early. It's only been live for 2 weeks. And so that brings us to today. With every page we build, this gets easier. We're chipping away at our site section by section. And every time we do a desktop sketch first, we end up starting over and going back to mobile first. There are some on our team that would still like to serve 2 sites. They believe it would be easier to build, and it probably would be. It might serve our customers better, and even our developer who took us down this path thinks that sometimes we might be able to build a superior experience if we separate out the mobile and the desktop. But we're getting better and better with each page we build. I, for one, am relieved to have a scalable site and that we're aiming towards where the puck is going, to a device-agnostic, scalable, and flexible unified experience. And that ends my presentation. Thank you for your time. I have some time for questions.
Questions in the room? All right.
Hi, back here. Have you guys started to redesign your emails to use media queries?
We are not using media queries in our emails yet, but we are always testing them on a phone and on a tablet. We're absolutely taking a mobile-first design approach when we do those as well.
Thanks.
We have one over here.
Hi.
Hi, Halley. What are the expectations of King Arthur Flower for conversion rates as you're moving to responsive design? So was in your experience in the past with the existing sites you had for mobile,
Yep.
how far behind was your conversion rate then, and what's your expectation moving forward with the new design?
I sure hope our conversion rates go up. But again, too early to tell. A lot of what we did was spend a lot of time looking at our analytics and making a lot of changes that we thought would help our conversion rates, besides just making it a responsive site. So obviously, we're looking for a better user experience and higher conversion rates across mobile and tablet. But we also, started to notice that most new visitors were coming in through the product page, so we did a better job of talking about our guarantee and why you should shop with us on those pages. We were looking at repeat visitors coming in through the home page, so we made some appropriate changes there. So we did a lot more than just responsify the site to help with our conversion rates. Yeah.
What's the underlying technology or platform for your e-commerce site?
It's a homegrown platform. It's
What's the
actually built
technology?
in-house. So it's a kind of custom version of JSP. So it's just Java-based. Yep.
Have you been able to quantify the difference between developing a straight web-only page versus a responsive design? You said it was longer, but do you have a percentage or?
So I'd say the design process is probably taking about 20% longer. The development, the actual coding, is probably taking, at this point, about 30 to 40% longer. The testing and debugging is probably taking, maybe almost double the time it did before. So I wouldn't say we're entirely doubling the development time. Again, we're getting better with it, and the new site, the e-commerce site we launched, is a completely new template that we built. So obviously, with each new template we build, there's some overhead there. But again, we're getting more and more efficient.
Any other questions? All right. Thank you.
Thanks.
Great.